we need to focus more on, and especially as women, like we are carrying so much right in here. And so if you can create systems for it and outsource some of those things, you're just going to enjoy your life a lot more.
Hi, I'm Michael Hyatt.
And I'm Megan Hyatt Miller.
And you're listening to The Double Win Show, and we're excited to share with you our recent conversation with Jordan Harper.
So Jordan is the founder and CEO of my favorite skincare brand, Barefaced. She is all about simplifying routines and providing real results. In fact, her tagline is less but better, which feels very full focus to me. I love that. She is a board certified nurse practitioner who spent years treating patients and noticed a gap in the market for minimal but effective skincare. Barefaced has grown rapidly since its launch in 2019, emphasizing education, transparency, customer care. Jordan is also the mom of 4 and 4 under 5, including a set of twins at the end. I mean, she is busy. And she is passionate about using tools like the Full Focus Planner to balance her roles as a business owner and a mom. Her leadership style is built on authenticity, connecting with her community, and delivering products that truly meet customers' needs. I can attest to that because I am one of those customers. She's been featured in Forbes, and she's recognized for her ability to scale a company in a saturated market and for empowering women in business. She lives in Knoxville, Tennessee, with her husband, and she balances family life and business with a focus on continual improvement.
And here's our conversation with Jordan. Enjoy.
Jordan, welcome to the show. We're so excited to have you.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
Well, I have to tell you that when I was getting ready this morning, I had like a little bit of performance anxiety because I was, cleaning my face and doing all my stuff. I use all your products. And I was like, is my skin going to be glowy enough for this podcast? So, if you're listening, you can watch the video and you can tell me what you think.
Yeah.
but seriously, you're an avid Full Focus Planner user. I know you're a big fan of the planner. I am a big fan of Barefaced and love your products, especially love the idea of less but better. I think that's really what we're about at Full Focus in a totally different context. And as a mom of 5 kids and, I don't have a lot of time for this stuff. It was just cut through the noise. I'm like, just give me whatever you got. Just take my money, send it to me. It'll make my life easier. So thanks for the work that you do. And I feel like we just have so much great overlap.
Totally. I tend to always lean towards brands that have the same philosophy of less but better. So I feel like it's really just like a natural fit.
That's awesome.
Perfect. We'd love to hear your story, just how you got to the place where you founded the company and just sort of the steps that led up to that. And then maybe just the story of founding it and what's happened since then.
Yeah. So my background is actually a nurse practitioner. And I started in the medical field over 10 years ago. And I was seeing patients in office. I was working in cosmetic dermatology, plastic surgery. So I was seeing a variety of patients. And I really started to have a specialty in injectables, skincare, and also laser treatment. So I was kind of treating the skin holistically, like in office, and then providing guidance for at home to maintain those results. And what I found is that so many women, our patient base was probably 99% women, were willing to invest in these office treatments, but they didn't have a consistent at-home routine that they were following. And so I always use this analogy where 80% of your results come from your at-home routine and 20% come from an office treatment. And so it would be like going to the dentist once every 6 months, but not brushing your teeth in between. It's like, how good do you think your teeth are going to be? Same thing goes with your skin. And so especially if you're investing in these office treatments that are going to provide results, but you're not really getting your biggest bang for your buck if you're not putting in the day-to-day work. And I think we could both agree, it's the little things that you're doing every single day that are yielding these big results over time. And I think they're underestimated because they're not that exciting, maybe, and they do take the consistency to see the results. And so I think people, if they use skincare, they're using a product for a couple weeks. And if they're not seeing results, they're like, all right, done, move into the next thing. So I just started to see, one, there's so much confusion in the industry. There's so many skincare products. And so my goal at that time, I didn't have a product line. I was just, working in offices, and I ended up starting my own practice and seeing patients, but still did not have my own skincare line. And I just started to see that, okay, I'm having to create a pretty in my opinion, it felt like an extensive routine to get these patients to see results. And the more you have to do, the less consistent you are going to be at it. So I was like, okay, I need to create something around the philosophy less but better. And that's what I have really always leaned into. When I look back at even before I started a business, I've always been like, quality over quantity. And so I started being in the industry, I started talking to other chemists, medical grade skincare lines, and I started kind of just quizzing them on why certain things existed. And something that I found that was really interesting is that a lot of these brands, especially if they're investor backed or whatever they are, and I never like to like bash other brands. This is definitely not the point of that, but you learn a lot when you're like curious. And so I learned that a lot of these brands, they are required to, especially if they're wholesale or they're in like, these bigger chain stores, they have to have a certain amount of products that they produce yearly. And so that's what adds a ton of volume to the industry, because they're having to meet these, like, that's just for interest, I guess, marketing, consumerism. And so there's a lot of products that like exist that maybe one, they're just not necessary. They're fluff. I don't have time for fluff. I want just the things that work. I want to do them. And like you were saying earlier, I want an expert to kind of guide me along. I can only be an expert with like one thing. And so, my hairstylist tells me this is what I need to do. That's what I do. My dentist tells me this, I want to find an expert that I trust and then kind of follow their guidance. So, all this to say, I started talking to chemists, I started developing these products, and really just 5 products I started with. And the cool thing about Barefaced is having the background as a nurse practitioner, I was developing these products not based on what I thought would be cool or what I thought was a good idea. It was based on thousands of patients. And at this point, I already had an Instagram where I was just sharing skin tips. Thousands of people messaged me on Instagram. They basically gave me the idea. And I always say, like, I don't think I have really like great ideas, but I'm a problem solver. And so you give me some problems, I'll solve them for you. And so that's kind of what I feel like Barefaced is. It's a solution to simplifying your skincare routine. And it's really catered towards the people that kind of want the experts to handhold you along, but also less but better, something that you can just easily manage and easily add to your day-to-day life so you can go on living life. Skincare is not the focus of most people's lives like it is mine. And so, and so Barefaced really grew organically on social. We didn't even start doing any like marketing, paid advertising, anything like that until the last year. And what that kind of showed me, one, I didn't really even know how to do any of that. So I was just sharing how I like to learn, and I like to learn through education. And so all of our business for the first 3 years was really just referral based, and just the power of people, just regular people, not influencers, and so, and we serve over 250,000 customers, it's like the power of just one person telling someone else and telling someone else. So that was really cool. And we are, I don't know, I feel like that's where we are today, right? I don't know. Did I answer that question?
That's great. Well, that's exactly how I found out about Barefaced. My sister Marissa, who hosts our other podcast, Focus on This, she was like, have you ever followed Jordan Harper? I really think you'd like her philosophy. I think it would be great given your season of life and all the rest. And I was like, no, I haven't heard about it, anyway. And then I ended up ordering 1 or 2 things. And before I knew it, I was using everything. And I think what you just said about finding a trusted expert and trusting their expertise is a real double win hack, because you're right. Like whatever area of your life you are an expert in, there is no way, no how you can be an expert in everything. And I think sometimes we drive ourselves absolutely crazy with all the research and, trying to optimize everything. And if you can outsource that to somebody that you trust, it's like you get the same outcome. You just didn't have to do all the work. And, I've kind of gotten to the place with my own skincare where I'm like, I'm just not even looking at anything else. Like I can check that off my list. I don't have to think about it anymore. And I think whether that's, nutrition or exercise or, parenting or whatever, if you just have somebody as a go-to expert, that's a real way that you can create margin in your life. So thanks for that. I think that applies well beyond skincare. Okay, next question for you is, skincare is not an uncrowded market. I mean, if you've been in a Sephora or an Ulta or, anywhere like that, I mean, we're talking like aisles and aisles, not to mention Target and your grocery store and everything else. There's so much out there. One, like what made you think you could get into this industry and stand out? And how have you stood out in such a crowded market?
I feel, by the way, before you answer that question, I feel like I need a translator.
Yeah.
Because I'm kind of on the sidelines watching this conversation.
Dude, so Sephora and Ulta are like, personal care product place, like
Okay.
makeup, skincare, perfume, whatever, all
Gotcha.
the hair stuff.
I'll get you on a whole skincare routine. You just don't even
Yeah,
have.
don't even worry about it.
Good.
She's got you.
Okay, so it's funny. That's why being naive is like so amazing, and that's why
Yeah.
so many entrepreneurs are young. Because you don't know what you don't know. And when I look back, I'm like, I don't want to start another business, but like at the time. You just don't know what you don't know. And you just like take, what is it? You slowly take a bite of that elephant. And so I didn't know what I didn't know. And so I think now that I know what I know, I probably would be like, oh, wow, the skincare industry is much too vast. But you know what? That's a limiting belief.
Yeah,
And so, because it's not, there's new brands that come out all the time. And I think, I think I had so much clarity that, and I definitely had, the doubters and even people that I, really respect that would say, are you sure this is a good idea? Like, why don't you just keep working? I think my dad for sure is always like, are you sure? Like, why don't you just keep working for like, business, like other doctor's offices? Like this feels safe, from a safe perspective. You always want your kids to be safe. And so I think he might be a little bit more risk averse than I am. But, so I just think I was like, well, I just know this is a need. I know, like, I just felt so clear. And I felt like I had such a connection with the community that I had, that the patients that I had. And truly, I actually thought, I didn't think Barefaced would be what it is today. I thought I would just offer this to my patients in office and maybe just a couple people online. I had no clue. And so, but I think I see opportunities. And so that's how I ended up like, adding this to be a direct to consumer, like e-commerce offering. But I definitely thought, oh, I'll just offer this in office. I never thought that skincare would be where my career would go, more so than like office procedures. So, and then, and I think what's made Barefaced stand out is, one, the referral base for sure has that's grown a ton of momentum. And I think having just a very clear set of like products, instructions, we try to constantly our messaging is like stays the same. And, I think that's helped a lot. We're pretty like consistent with the way we sell. And I even tell our customer service team, our whole team knows this, like, we're not trying to sell you product. We're trying to help you out. And a lot of people message us about other products, prescription products. We're going to give you advice if we have, or recommendations. We're not giving like medical advice, obviously online, but, we're going to give you, like, we're here to help. And I think people just like, we want to be that trusted resource. And so we don't sell to sell. So we have a really high recurring customer rate. We have a 90% recurring customer rate for the past 4 years, which is like,
that's amazing.
Proud things. Yeah. Skincare in general, I think is 25%. And I think it's because we're just like, we're showing up and we're not trying to, if something we don't think someone's going to work for a certain customer, then don't buy it. Like, or if you like trying a bunch of skincare, if you like doing a bunch of different things, then like, we're not the brand for you. I think we're just really clear, like who we're for, who we're not for, and what we offer. And it's just like, we want to be your core.
What was the hardest part about starting a business like this? The part maybe that you didn't anticipate?
Time, time management, which is what and the mental load of entrepreneurship, that it never ends. You never stop thinking about it.
So true.
Yeah. So that's something that you don't turn it off. And where I was used to working with medical practices, where like you go to work and you leave. And sure, there's like a little thing, little things that maybe you're like touching base with the patient after hours, but like entrepreneurship's like, I could never sleep and it's still not all getting done. And so I remember drowning. And that's when I really got really into time blocking and all of that, when I kind of pivoted from being in office where my schedule was controlled, and I kind of knew, okay, this is when I work. This is when I do this, X, Y, Z. And then when I wasn't, I was trying to be a mom, trying to be a wife, trying to be a business owner. Like, it was just like this chaos. And so that has probably been the hardest, because I feel like I can figure anything out, but it's just figuring out when to figure everything out. What are my priorities, when to do that. So that's probably the hardest challenge, but I love to be underestimated. So that was never a fear of mine. I like to people think, oh, she's not going to be able to do this very well. That feels very freeing to me.
That's awesome. I love that. I'd love for you to just talk about beyond the full focus planner. We'll come back to that in a little bit, but What are some of the productivity strategies that you use, or when you think about managing your life? Because you are married, you do have 4 children. How old is your oldest?
5.
Oh my gosh. So you have 4 under
Wow.
5
What
and
do
a
you,
set of twins at the end,
Yeah.
right? So, I mean, you're not just like laying by the pool. I mean, you are busy, busy. You've got 1,000 things going on, and your husband was in medical school and
Yeah.
then in residency. I mean, it's just a lot. And so I would love for you to just share some of the things that you do that make your life work.
Okay, so I think the first thing that's made a big difference in what I like feeling like I'm fulfilled by the end of the day and not depleted by the end of the day was I like to do these like moments of resetting. And so I used to only do this, in January when you're like the new year, but now I do this much more frequently. And and now I have such a routine of it that it doesn't seem so overwhelming. So the very first thing I did just when I started this whole process of like getting a little bit more control over my day-to-day life was just writing out what are my priorities and high level. And so for me, the priorities in order, and this is going to sound funny and I'll explain it in a second, but because anyone who's mom always feels weird saying that like I'm my number one priority, but my number one priority is myself. My second is my family. My third is my business. My fourth is my friends. I don't have any other priorities outside of that. Like that's all I can handle. And so everything filters through this lens of, okay, how is this? It's not that I wouldn't like give my life for my kids. I'm not saying that, it's like, but it's saying, hey, like I need to make sure if I'm not taking care of myself, then my family is not going to be really well taken care of. And
that's
making
exactly
sure
right.
Mhm.
blocking the time to like invest in who I am, whether that's reading, exercise, nutrition, all of those things, because that's going to serve all of my relationships. And I think especially as women, we can have this like martyr mindset where it's like, everyone's first, everyone's first. Well, it's like, sure, that might work for, a week, a season, but you will get so depleted. And then what do you have? And what does that look like for all of your other relationships? You start to like then drain those relationships because your cup isn't full. And so I started by listing out, okay, what are my priorities? And so everything kind of goes through that lens. And so as I'm blocking out my schedule and I'm like kind of curating the life that I want, and I love time blocking so much because uh, it's like you can actually do the things that you want. You do have time, but you just have to know what's your priority and what do you actually want. Because think about all the stuff we do every day that was like, I don't even want to do this. And so after writing out like priorities, then I kind of figure out what does my day to day look like. And so I kind of write out. I get very like granular in this because I love Atomic Habits. I love Essentialism. There's like a handful of books that are just my go-tos that I kind of read yearly just to kind of like get myself back on track. But knowing like these little habits that actually take 20 minutes of your time. I noticed when I was getting to work, I would sit on my phone for 20 minutes. And like that adds up. That's 20
Hmm.
minutes.
Yeah.
So just knowing that you have the habit, and sometimes that's okay, but like we're so unaware of a lot of the things that we do. So I wrote down everything I could do, what could be just removed from my schedule. Think about all the things we say yes to, what could be delegated, what could be outsourced. And that's kind of like how I kind of got control of my life. And there's so much I say no to, and I love it.
Yeah.
And then, so it's
I do
like,
too.
I actually feel like I feel very fulfilled and I feel like I have good friendships, I have good relationships, but it's like by not spreading myself too thin.
Mhm.
What does your team look like, and how do they help you?
So we have 12 people. We have a customer service team. We have a fulfillment center team, e-commerce, marketing, brand management, a lot of people in social curation. So they
Mhm.
help me with everything I could think of.
That's
uh,
awesome.
Yeah.
we built the built the business. We have no investors at all, so I'm full owner, and so I had to always be very intentional with like every dollar being spent. And it's interesting. I have no business background, but I do feel like a lot of that is a testament to my parents. I just never spent more than we could, never hired more than we could afford. And so we've always remained profitable. We've always been able to like invest in good quality people. And so the business has really grown uh, one by one as the
Mm.
business could like afford it. So at first it was me, like
Yeah.
at first it was like, all the things. And so now we're really getting more in line with like, not everyone is having to wear so many hats.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah,
is
that's
just,
good.
yeah.
That's the
What
thing I think I love about a team is it allows specialization so that particularly as a business owner, you can increasingly focus on what you do best
Yep.
and offload the rest.
Mhm.
Yep.
Because when that happens, you're not depleted. And I think it's those things that we're not really well equipped for that deplete us, that have to get done by somebody. But when you can get a team,
Yep.
very helpful, because some people thrive on that, on the very things that de-energize us.
Mm-hmm.
Totally. Yeah, that's been transformative because there's certain things where it's, yeah, it has to get done, and who's ultimately going to probably do it? Maybe me. But now that there's a team to delegate to, or who can own within their strengths, it's a game changer.
So, one of the things I am curious about with you is what kind of support you have on the personal side, like with your family and your home and all that. Because I think one of the things I hear a lot from other women like us who are leading at a high level and they're showing up in a big way is like it can seem like magic. Like she just knows something. She has some magic where she can get, 4 jobs done in one day's worth of time. And I think that's usually not true. Like I know for us, we have a part-time nanny and home manager. We have somebody who comes and cleans our home once a week. And there are just things that there's no way I could do. Like I just cannot do it all. And so I'm curious if you're comfortable just kind of sharing, like, what does that support system look like for you on the personal side?
Yeah. So it's interesting. I like that you said if you're comfortable because, and I'm happy to
Yeah.
share, but
Yeah.
I always like to preface this because I think sometimes when you share your support,
Yeah.
it, as people are like, oh, I can't afford that. Well, it's like,
Right.
well, yeah, I mean, I only add the support. And I truly believe, and I remember someone telling me this with my very first pregnancy, hire as much support as you can afford. And you also have to be comfortable delegating. And
Yes.
there's a handful of things that you have to like kind of learn how to do. And I'm constantly learning how to do this, but I'm always hesitant because I never want it to seem like, oh yeah, because I don't do this, I don't do that. And it's like, well, that's not realistic. Well, at the level now that I'm at with like running a business, like a large business and a
Mm-hmm.
household, like it does become, you cannot do it all. And
Right.
so you have to choose. And to think that you can like not have this support and do all the things that you're doing, you're not going to
Yeah.
be doing well.
Right.
So to refuse support is like such a miss.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to be really intentional and thoughtful about who you put
Yeah.
in those areas.
Absolutely.
So because your family is like, that's your most important thing. So
Yeah.
you want to make sure. So I have an executive assistant. So she helps me with
Yeah.
personal and business, and she's kind of like my right hand. We also have a virtual assistant, and so she
Mm.
does more like virtual things. That my like executive assistant is with me, lives in Knoxville. She's my only employee that lives in Knoxville.
Oh,
Everyone else,
that's nice. Yeah.
yeah, everyone else is remote. And then we also have a nanny who has, I hate to even call her nanny, because she's like a household manager. They become so much part of your life. A nanny doesn't explain her well enough, but she really helps us run our house, essentially. So
Mm-hmm.
she's like a nanny household manager. And
Yep.
so when I talked earlier about delegating tasks, there's certain tasks that I only want to do. And that's really like
Yeah.
the time when I spend with my kids. There's certain things where it's like, if I can have her help me with laundry or help me pick up around the house, certain things like that, that doesn't really matter who does that.
Mm-hmm.
As far as like the quality of your life, the quality of your relationships, that doesn't, I want to make sure that the things that I'm choosing to do and the time that I have for the various, things that I have to do is most valuable. And for me, when I get home, I'm ready to like, I'm done with work and I'm ready to be on with my kids and be with my
Yeah.
husband. And so we use a meal service for that. Cooking is not I have checked that off my list.
That's awesome.
It doesn't bring me joy. I always say, I'm like, I want to cook when I'm like maybe 60 and I'm just, I watch the Today Show to get some ideas, and maybe I do it. But like right now, to the mental like thought of having to prep a meal and like
Yeah.
we have like a local meal service here that has, healthy meals that we can get. And so that helps too with not only meal prep for me, for my kids. So that's something where, so now when I come home, it's all, stacked in the refrigerator. What do we want to eat tonight? And we pull it out. And that way, like we can just enjoy time with our kids.
Yeah.
And yes, and we definitely have a cleaning service too. And they come once a week.
Yeah.
But it's really the two, I would say my executive assistant and our nanny we're like a little trio.
Yeah.
And, there's a lot of, with those roles that are so personal, that's really good. I've really had to like work on being a really effective communicator. And we have a home playbook and
Oh,
that's
cool.
very detailed about all the things that need to be done. I mean, down to like how often the air filters need to be changed. I mean, there's
Yep.
like, making sure that one, that eliminates a lot of her mental load too. It's not like she's, what am I supposed to do on a Tuesday? What's happening now? And so I think, kids are a lot to take in, and it's all, they're in school a couple days a week too, but so that way she can kind of support me at home with the day-to-day kind of tasks.
Yeah. I think that's really helpful to hear. And I do think that distinction of, on the one hand, you and I both grew into where we are now and the support systems we have. We didn't start out, when we began our careers, for example, or when we had our first child, we didn't begin at that level. And so I think, like, when I think back to what it looked like for me, is I had somebody 5 or 10 hours a week helping me out. That was how it started. It was so helpful just to get like laundry off my plate, because like you, I was thinking, okay, my time is limited. I want to invest in the things that my kids are going to remember, that they're really going to make them feel loved and feel like they belong and, are known. And for me, that was sitting at the dinner table. Like, that's a non-negotiable for me, as my kids are much older now and teenagers and sports and all that. It's a little more hit or miss, but still we really prioritize sitting at the table. Last night I had frozen pizza that I pulled out, and we sat at the table and we had our frozen pizza, and that was great. But I think, you can work your way into that when you know what your non-negotiables are and where you really get the biggest return on investment. I mean, it's really very much like we think about our professional lives. If I'm going to make an investment, I want a great return. And there are things that I know my kids are not that it's unimportant, like laundry, for example, but they're not going to grow up and say, I just remember my mom folded the neatest laundry, and my drawers were just perfect. I mean, they're not going to say that. They're, they'll appreciate that when they're adults and they're doing it for themselves. And so those things, I want to outsource those things as I can, because it frees me up to invest in their hearts and their development and things that otherwise, I'd be harried running around. So I think, one, if you're listening to this, don't rule it out because you can't do everything we're talking about right now. But on the other hand, be excited for what you could grow into potentially in the future, because there really is, it's not magic. There really is like a whole support system that you can take advantage of and build, just like you would in the context of a business. And so anyway, thank you for sharing that. I think it's just helpful. People, I think for a long time as women, like, it kind of wasn't okay to talk about this stuff. You just sort of had to pretend like, yeah, I'm doing it all. It's amazing, right? It's like, no, I'm not doing it all. I'm very careful about what I'm handing off. So,
and you have to build you have to truly like build systems in your life. And I think you focus so much on systems from a business perspective, but your personal life, that needs to be a system.
Yes.
Your relationship with your spouse needs to be a system. Like, if you don't block the time to spend time with them, like where is that relationship going to, go?
Yeah.
I read, and there's a book called The Almanac of Naval Ravikant.
Yes, I haven't read that, but I've seen it.
Very good. But he says something, and it kind of like shifted how I thought about outsourcing certain things. First of all, figure out what is your hourly rate as a business owner, or as just a hourly rate. What is your hourly rate? And sometimes outsourcing in general, it is a sacrifice. You're having to let go of, money to pay other people. And it's like, you have to figure out what is that worth to you?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was really helpful. He's like, his hourly rate is XYZ. So he's like, his hourly rate is maybe $5,000. And so he's like, if anything is $5,000 or less, it takes me that time, I'm outsourcing it. Okay, well, that's really high. But, it's really good to know what is your hourly rate so you can justify, or maybe there's certain things that you choose to sacrifice and not do to outsource. I think it's, we need to focus more on, and especially as women, like, we are carrying so much right in here. And so if you can create systems for it and outsource some of those things, you're just going to enjoy your life a lot more. And this is all we got.
Dan Martell has a book called Buy Back Your Time. And this is the same idea, right? But I love knowing your hourly rate. And we teach that to our clients as well, because it makes delegation simple.
Yep.
Because sometimes really even smart entrepreneurs are really stupid with our own time, because it's costing them more to do it themselves than they could outsource it. And they don't have enough time already to do the things that only they can do. And I think that's a huge hack for business and life to be successful, is focus on what you do best. And to the extent that you can afford it, outsource the rest.
Yes. And what you're doing too is then you're making yourself more productive, then you're probably going to end up making more money.
That's right.
Exactly.
it's like, it kind of is, we get kind of stuck sometimes, but really it's a win. It's a win-win.
Yeah,
Well, and I
it
think
is.
the other part of it that we don't think about, and I like my wife, Gail, I had a hard time talking her into hiring a housekeeper because she felt like, we're of a generation where she said, I should be able to do all that. And I said,
Yeah.
I get it, honey. But here's the thing. And this is where I finally got her. I said, you're depriving somebody else out of a livelihood.
She was like,
Somebody else that could do it
Mm.
better and
yeah,
faster and actually enjoy it and free you up to do the things that you're magical at, but don't have time to do right now.
Yeah.
Well, that's suddenly, she got excited about helping other people. And I think that's something that sometimes isn't said.
I think that's really true. My husband Joel hates doing anything handy. Like he is an
Me too.
academic, a writer at heart. Like he loves like anything intellectual. And the surest way for him to feel stressed and overwhelmed is like, hey, can you hang that, clothes drying rack in the laundry room? He's like, just kill me.
Yeah.
And so we realized that we could save those things up. It's like you have 4 or 5 things that you need done, and you could just bring somebody in who could do that. And it might cost us $150, but it would have taken him the better part of a whole weekend and a whole lot of stress, and he wouldn't be rested at the end of it. And I think that's when it's like, okay, that's the trade-off. Because what does your week look like after that if you haven't been exhausted by doing stuff you hate and you're not good at all weekend long? Not that we don't do chores. We certainly do chores around our house. But there's some stuff that you really can get off your plate for very reasonable investment.
Yep.
I want to go back to something about work-life balance because you said something that's very true of entrepreneurialism, and that is the never-ending to-do list.
Mhm.
It's like, I feel like sometimes it's like playing whack-a-mole. You get one thing crossed off and 5 other things magically appear and you can never get ahead of it. But has that been a challenge for you as an entrepreneur to maintain some sense of, I prefer the term integration, but work-life integration?
Mhm.
Or is that something that's always come easy to you?
Work-life integration.
Yeah.
So I would say, I don't think it's come easy. I don't know if you guys do the Enneagram, but I'm an Enneagram 3.
We do.
Yes. Okay.
You're a
And
3?
I'm a 3.
Me
What do
too.
you
I'm
You
a
agree?
4. A 4
Oh,
with a
okay.
3 wings. So yeah.
Yes. My brand director is 4 with the 3 wing, and we are just
Oh.
like perfect.
Yeah.
I'm like a little, having that little wing is helpful.
Yeah.
So, I love working and it brings me a lot of joy. I would say, especially in the social media space that never sleeps,
Yeah.
that is a challenge, to like turn that off. But once I actually once I just realized like the time that I was spending and the distractions that I was having like at home, I would say it's easy for me to have work come into home for sure.
Mhm.
So what I have to do, and I'll have to, I'll constantly think I need to be posting on social media. That's like a problem that I've had in the past. And I'm like, hey, you know what? Today is a day you're taking off. So I don't even wake up and think about it because I'm like, you know what? You said like this. I do that a lot on the weekends. I don't post because I just want to just chill. And so it's really been helpful to like almost set that on the front end instead of like, it's like, hey, do you need to post a little something? What should you do that? And so I would say it's definitely something I'm constantly aware of. It does not come natural. I lean into like working more. And what I find is social media is kind of a full-time job, and then running a business is a full-time job.
Yeah.
So I do the business during the day and I'll kind of catch up at night. So I kind of rob a little bit of my nights after I put my kids down. And that doesn't make me feel good if I do that multiple nights in a row. And so just getting, that's just something I constantly have to reset. Because I'm like, oh, I can do that at night because that kind of never sleeps, but this has to be done by 5 p.m. So I would say it's always something you're aware of. But like, I think it's cool that we live in a time that work and life can like interchange so nicely.
Mhm.
And that's what's fun about the space, not having to work from any like building location these days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
true.
I mean, there's a lot of advantages to that for sure. The other part of it, though, is it's so easy for work to bleed into the rest of life
Mhm.
because of that very same thing.
Mhm.
So honestly, as an Enneagram 3 myself and as a recovering workaholic, I have an ongoing struggle with this. I have to continue to reset. And, I think a lot of people write out of their weakness, and that's definitely true for me. Like even the double win is something I struggle, to get. And I have to keep reminding myself
Mhm.
that, wait a second, you got to put the computer down.
Yes.
It's time for other things.
Mhm.
Because like you said, there's always something else you can do.
Mhm.
And I convinced myself and I don't know if this happens to you, but I convince myself, I think, well, if I just get this one thing done, I'm almost done. Honey, just give me another 20 minutes.
Mhm.
And then there's something else that pops up.
Yeah. When I'm like, what? This is for work. This is not, I'm not just like surfing on the internet, or I'm not just like, I'm like, this is adding value. And like, so yeah, you can tell yourself a lot of stories and justify like what you're doing. No, this is a constant reset for me too. And that's why I started to do these like weekly resets instead of, oh, I'll just do a reset in January when I'm, kicking off the new year. Cause I was like, I can get off track quick if you're not careful.
Yeah, that's true. And the more successful you become, the easier it is because you're getting it's a real reward loop.
I want to ask you about the full focus planner.
Me too.
Is that where you're going?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay. So I think the way that we actually got introduced to you in the first place, beyond just skincare, was you're posting about the full focus planner. And we were like, oh my gosh, how fun, So tell me how the full focus planner has helped you win at work and succeed at life.
I love this planner so much.
I know you do. I love it.
So there's a couple things. The reflections, just not doing it. And being a 3, it's like, I have to take a moment. And that's why I love my brand director she like forces me to like appreciate and celebrate these small moments. I don't do that. I'm like, all right, yep. She's like, are you ever like proud of what we're doing? I'm like, yeah, I'm proud, but let's keep going. And so, it's like, it's one of those things where the reflections really help me like, oh, I am making progress. Yeah. I am and there is something to look back and be like, wow, like I'm really proud of myself. And that's building confidence for me and building resilience. And then also looking back and like, how can I improve? What did I not do? Because, I want to be a person that reads every night. But am I really reading every single night? So the streak tracker, I love doing that. It's like, oh, shoot, I only did 3 out of it's like we can tell ourselves any story we want. And I like to tell myself I'm doing really good. And then I look back and I'm like, like I actually didn't do all the things that I had planned on doing. So I think it's helped me be accountable. And I love competition. And so it's like a competition with myself. Yeah. That's why I like it. And so, so one of the ways I help myself get up in the morning as I'll be like, what would a successful person do? I'm very like, it's not about, I'm like, because I want to sleep in, but what would a successful person do? So for the full focus, I love the daily 3 because my to-do list is, so long. And so pulling out my top 3, what do I need to get done? And that's very achievable. There's nothing worse than getting done with the day and just feeling like, what did I do? Like, I know I worked on what the heck did I even do? And then that feeling of one of my goals for 2024 was to stop saying I don't have time. I don't have time for this. I don't want to say that. I say I don't make time for that because I really believe we have the time to do the things that we want to do. Now we can't do everything, but that's why you need to know what you want to do. And that's why you know the person that you want to be. And so I stopped saying that. And by blocking out these, periods of time and doing a morning ritual, like what do I want to get done in the morning? And I have it written out. So I know certain things take me 12 minutes. Certain things take me, so I know exactly my morning routine takes me like 57 minutes. And so I'm not going to be able to get done what I need to get done. If it's like a joke it's like, oh, I'll wake up 30 minutes before. And it's like, no, I'm not going to get that done. So now I know how long these moments take. And then my ramp up, I was just like jumping into work. And then when you do that, if I'm on Slack or emails, I'm all over the place. Whereas if I have a little ramp up and I'm getting my day kind of structured and organized, I'm a lot more productive.
Yeah.
So what does your morning routine look like? Your morning ritual?
So I have recently, this season is the first season in 5 years where I've been able to work out before my kids wake up. That has been transformative. Yeah. So I get up around 5:15, 5:30, go work out. So and that's something that I pay for that class. So I'm accountable to it. I don't want to miss that class. And so that's been like so amazing for my productivity. I just feel like so accomplished by 6:30 in the morning. So when I don't work out in the morning, I still try to keep that same. I really like have to follow a routine because if I am off one day, it just really throws me off. So if I'm not working out that morning, I'm still trying to wake up at the same time. Otherwise I'll be like derailed. So I wake up, I'll have like I still want to start slow. If I'm not jumping out of bed to work out, I'm going to start slow. So I'll do my red light mask while I do a meditation. So that takes me about 12 minutes. And then I do different stretching things, takes me 5 minutes. I'll do obviously my skincare routine. I do like to read for 20 minutes, and that too, especially getting that done in the morning. So that way, if I end up not reading at night, which is always my goal, I'm like, okay, well, at least I read 20 minutes today because I want to be a reader. So it's like, if I can, eat the elephant in the morning and get those things done, I'm like, oh yeah. And then I find when I read in the morning, I'm more motivated to read at night. So it's like these little wins that I'm like, oh, it's like doing these little wins in the morning. So I try to make my morning ritual where I feel really accomplished, whether it's like, doing definitely my skincare routine, definitely my little stretching. I'll just review my day for 5 minutes. I'm trying to think what else. Meditation, but I try to multitask it too. I'd have my like hot water. I try to start off really like slow, but there's like consistent things that I'm doing. So then by the time my kids wake up and I wake them up, I'm like awake and kind of like ready to get the day going.
Yep. I think it's helpful to do that before the kids wake up, or at least some part of it. I kind of break mine into two pieces based on when my kids are waking up. But I think if you feel stressed, like if you feel like you're supposed to be doing something else when you're doing your morning ritual, that's going to be a setup to fail. I think that's one of the things that we've all experienced is if you feel like you're supposed to be working or taking care of your kids, you can't really be present for it, and it probably means you need to make it shorter or easier or something so that it's more doable.
And it's different seasons of your life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. But what is your biggest obstacle in this season of your life in business for getting the double win?
I mean, isn't time always the biggest obstacle?
Yeah.
And like, that's not really like that, but I think probably time and what I've worked on definitely these past 3 months is what you were saying earlier about making sure I'm doing the things that are the most valuable for the business. And that's been really helpful as we build out our team. So I've been trying to focus on being more of like founder role, doing things like this, doing things like filming more content. So I would say like, making sure I'm doing the things that are most valuable for the business. But for a double win, I would say time has to be it.
Yeah. Constant choices. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Second question is, how do you personally know when you're getting the double win? When you're in that place of, balance?
I know this. Okay. I know that when I feel present. When I feel like I am present. And that's the biggest thing that I've noticed with like taking more ownership of my schedule and my day to day is that because I used to not feel always like present with my kids. I'm like playing with them. I'm there physically, but I got a lot of stuff going on in my mind right now. Whereas when I can be present with them and know that it's like, I may not have everything done, but I have time blocked out for it later in the day. Like being present it has to be it for sure.
That's a very good one.
Yeah. I think that's so true. Okay. Lastly, what is one ritual or routine that you rely on to do what you do?
And this was the thing you hinted at when you talked about your morning ritual, but there may be something else.
Yeah.
That I rely on like every day. Tell me yours.
For me, it is my morning ritual. I've got to get outside and move. I've got to have some quiet, still time for being silent and spiritually. And I've got to make my smoothie. Like I feel like my smoothie, if I get my smoothie, I have like killed it on the protein, the fiber, the good fats. Like I'm just so ahead on the nutritional side. And that's been a struggle for me, especially in the morning. So that's
good.
Yeah.
Michael, what's yours?
I would say similarly, it's that morning routine. I'm an introvert, so I've got to have my introvert time. So if I get up, for example, after my wife and she's already had her coffee, she's very talkative. And I don't want to talk. I need an hour just of quiet where I can do some reading, do some exercise. We do that together. So that's awesome. But like Megan shared, my smoothie is a big thing because that's where I get a jump start on everything, including protein, which I find difficult to get enough of.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Then now I got mine. So I do something every day. And so I try to work out 4 to 5 days a week, but like certain things, it's not every single day, but something I do every single day is what I have like 2 different drink concoctions that like, and it's like, that kind of like sets the day where I'm like, yes, I'm like nutritionally, I'm like doing what I need to do. And so they're not my protein drinks. I try to drink, about 16 ounces of water before of this. I do like salt water, electrolytes, lemon. And then if I'm working out, I'll add like creatine to it, colostrum, vitamin C. And then I have a separate hot water this is all before I eat anything. So this is about maybe 12 ounces where it's Shilajit and then a little bit of salt. And that kind of like kicks off my day. I pretty much do that everywhere, no matter if I'm traveling, it's like, that's kind of always what I do. I have an hour at least before I have caffeine. But that's what I do every morning before I eat any food. So that's it.
That's fantastic.
Okay, what was the thing that you put in the hot water?
It's called Shilajit.
What is that?
It's like this resin. It sounds kind of weird, but it's from the Himalayan mountains.
Okay.
And it's like, it looks like tar. And my husband says it tastes like horse sweat, but I love it. It's so good. So I'm so used to it. I love the way it tastes. My twins actually will drink it with me, and they really like it. The girls, I think they think it tastes like horse sweat too. But you guys should try it. But anyway,
I definitely am going to.
It's spelled like Shiligat, so Shilajit.
Okay.
So I add that to my hot drink, and then I love I have a lot of different drink concoctions I drink throughout the day that like kind of reset my routine too.
Wow, I think you need to make that a lead gen for Barefaced. People would probably opt in like crazy to know what your drink concoctions are.
I shared that post, and I think it had like over like 10,000 shares.
I bet it did. That's
And
wild.
some people
I
are like,
love
this
it.
is way too much. But like with anything, like all these things, like they seem like a lot until you just do them and you make them your routine. It's like, this is not a lot. It's very manageable.
Yeah. I love that.
One last question, and to me, this is the most important one.
Okay.
Do you have skincare products for men?
So it's a common misconception that you need different skin types for different genders or ethnicities. It's really more about like the product. So yes, we have skincare that you can absolutely use. I would say like my brothers use our skincare, my dad, my husband. So are they packaged? Like, do they look manly? That's up to you to decide. Depends what you want to have on your counter. But, will they work on your skin? I'll send you guys some. But if you're consistent with them, which I think you can be, you'll love them. But no, they're not like packaged on the outside.
They're not like in black packaging.
No, I just like had a moment where I thought, I've been totally duped.
Yeah.
Like, it's really branding, isn't it?
Totally.
I mean, it's
brand.
like, how could it be different? Skin.
Exactly.
I'm sure there's hormonal differences and all that. Yeah. But I just feel like I've had a moment of enlightenment. Thank you.
The thing that you're going to love is even for sensitive skin, you'll be able to tolerate it if you go slowly. I have really sensitive skin, and I was kind of skeptical, and it's been great. Like I can use everything. In fact, I'm about to go up to the stronger toning pads. You don't even know what that means yet, but you don't even know, but you're going to find out. It's going to be great.
You know what? He'll probably actually be able to tolerate the glow peel pads. Probably like 4 to 5. Men can tolerate, they can tolerate higher percentage of things, but whereas women can tolerate them maybe a couple times a week. So I'll send you some stuff. You'll like it.
Awesome.
Well,
Jordan, thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
This has been so fun. Fantastic. And we'll tell everybody how to get in touch with you and find your products and all the rest in our outro. But thanks for being on with us.
Yes. Thank you guys so much. Hope to talk to you guys soon.
Okay, so that was a conversation I got more out of than I thought I might, given the fact that it was skincare, and it's not something that's really a hobby or a focus for me.
Well,
and it probably should be.
Including you learned that there's no such thing as men's skincare. That
was a
all
light bulb
skincare
moment.
is for everybody.
that was kind of silly. I mean, I thought, oh my gosh, I've been totally marketed to, and bought into it.
It's like yogurt. Have you ever noticed how there's like that yogurt, Greek yogurt that has the black container, and it has it looks almost like a, Marvel comic people designed it. And
men's yogurt?
Yeah. It's like designed for men. Whereas other ones, it's like flowers and like vanilla beans and, clearly for women.
I knew we had a lot in common when she said she was an Enneagram 3.
I know.
And a Wing 4 and all these other things. And I thought, okay, I can relate
I know you.
Yeah, exactly.
I know you.
You or me in the mirror.
One of the things that I have loved about following her on social, and you can follow her either, I think it's Jordan Harper NP on Instagram, and then obviously Barefaced, but on her personal account, she's just really real about her life, and her house is kind of always chaotic with her kids and she's doing a lot, but she has been so intentional about building systems. Down to like how she thinks about how her kids' playroom is organized so that it doesn't get out of control. And I think that it's a good example of how it doesn't have to be overwhelming to be somebody who's a high achiever while doing other important things in your life, including raising a family. It really doesn't have to be either or, but she's a great example of being intentional because it does not happen by accident in her life.
I also loved your question about what support she has in her personal life.
Yeah.
Because I do think that's tricky to talk about because obviously, many of us are in a position of privilege where we can afford that kind of stuff.
Right.
And some people aren't and would love to have it. But I think the common denominator is, you do what you can, right? It's like I really believe in coaching and tell people they need to hire a coach. But if you can't afford to hire a coach, get a book, listen to a podcast, do what you can. The point is to be learning and exposing yourself to things that force you to change.
Right. Well, even like this is a little silly example, but maybe you can't afford that kind of support, but you want to eat healthy and you can't afford a meal service like she was talking about, which is, it's a great idea. I was talking with my sisters about doing kind of a meal swap because we have some particular nutritional goals and, some of the things we want to make would just take too long. It's like, I don't have time to make like 5 things from scratch every week. That's not going to happen, but I could make one thing, a whole bunch of one thing, and we could trade. And I think you just have to get creative. But I think the point is when you value your time, like she was talking about, when you know what your hourly rate is, then you really have a clearer idea of what the trade-offs are for trying to do everything yourself or for wasting time or not being intentional about how you design things.
By the way, when you're trying to figure your hourly rate, and let's just say, for example, we have one of our daughters who's a stay-at-home mom, she doesn't have an hourly rate.
Right.
Or does she? And the way that I would look at that is if she had to be replaced, what would it cost you?
Right.
And it would be expensive.
Right. Right. Because you're doing like easily 2 full-time jobs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So anyway, but I liked her transparency too. The fact that she said she needs the reflection questions.
Yeah.
I struggle with that as an Enneagram 3 too, because it's easy for me to just do and go from, one thing to the next, so I can check it off instead of stopping and reflecting. And that's what I do love about the weekly preview and the quarterly preview in the Full Focus Planner. It gives people a chance to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it was a really fun conversation. And I think I got newly inspired to look at different areas, particularly of my personal life. Like, what can I systematize? What do I continue doing the same work over and over, thinking through? Like, for example, I have chore lists for the weekend for my kids, actually for myself and Joel too, that we just like routine things that we do. And every weekend I print those out. Well, why do I need to do that? This week I got them laminated. And so I don't have to print them out anymore. Well, that's a little bitty thing, but you add a bunch of those things up and it starts to create friction and real time. And I feel like she's a master at doing those sorts of things.
Yeah. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the episode, and I hope you'll join us next week for another episode. In the meantime, do us a favor, go out and rate the podcast. And if you can, write us a review. This, again, helps us get the podcast out to newer listeners. And we're on this mission to spread the double win so that people truly can win at work and succeed at life. And you're our partners in that. We'd like to think so. So help us there. Thanks so much.